Hey guys, how's it going? It's Lee here. I know I've been away from YouTube for a while. Trust me, I've been so busy. There's been a resurgence in cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin, in news lately, and I just want to touch on a bit of that today. Because with the resurgence of Bitcoins means more people are actually trying to get into cryptocurrency in the hopes of cashing out big when the next boom comes about. So in this video, I want to run through my thoughts and just discuss a couple of reasons why I think Bitcoin is climbing up drastically in the past month. Now, as a disclaimer, I have no money in Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, or anything like that. All of my money is invested into shares or properties. So I like assets that produce some kind of income or produce a product or a service that can increase their valuations in the future or provide me with some form of cash flow. Now, the first reason why I think we might be seeing a rise in cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin, is due to the fact that there's a lot of tension around the world at the moment. In particular, the trade war between the US and China. News around a trade war actually comes about. There's a lot of fear and angst. People get antsy in the marketplace and in the economy as a whole. And in general, a lot of people actually lose faith and trust within the economy. So that includes shares, that includes property, and definitely includes the US dollar or the Australian dollar, whatever form of currency is used within that country. So because there's a lot of fear and anxiety within the marketplace, people generally seek an alternative where they can put their money as a store of value. For example, the most common one we see is gold and silver. Now, have you noticed that when news gets a bit dry or there's a lot of conflict and volatility within the marketplace, they always tend to introduce some random guy on there who claims to be an expert. Well, he might actually be an expert, shouldn't say, but who is an expert within bonds, within gold, within silver, within Bitcoin. And they're always playing on that fear that's in the marketplace at the moment and suggesting and providing, these random analytics, metrics as to why gold, silver, Bitcoin, or any other forms of exchange is a better alternative to cash. Another thing that I've always wondered is how these Bitcoins actually generate some kind of value apart from having somebody else pay a higher price than you do from it. So for property, for example, you have the bit of land. Obviously, there's scarcity within land in certain big cities. So for us down in Australia, it'd be Sydney and Melbourne. There's only so much land in Sydney and Melbourne that can go around before people have to pay and bid a higher price for the same lot of land. Alternatively, so that's its value going up. Alternatively, you can also get cash flow from the rent that the property receives, right? So hopefully you pay over the home loan over a period of time and you receive the cash flow from that. So there's two ways that you can do it in property. Shares is very similar. Shares can give you a payment in dividends. So normally a company makes a profit and then pays you out a portion of that profit in dividends. And alternatively, for tech companies, biotech companies, when they've created something new in the marketplace or they've hit certain numbers, their valuations of the share prices go up because the company's got a higher value in the eyes of the marketplace. And talking about interviews, there was a recent interview on the CNBC television show where Kevin O'Leary and some Bitcoin expert kind of went head to head about the value of Bitcoin and whether it was going to be, a thing of the future. Typical Kevin O'Leary, if you don't know who he is, he's from a Shark Tank, big investor, came in and just basically said that Bitcoin really has no value because the valuation of it falls back on the US dollar. And what's also was interesting to me was that in the interview, he actually talked about Bitcoin being in smaller and smaller portions in the future because there's such a scarcity towards them. Now, I don't know about you, but when somebody tries to sell me on an item based on the fact that it's going to be a scarce resource in the future, that just sounds a little bit too fishy. Like, it sounds like a seedy salesman trying to sell me on some product that's going to be a limited time offer, and then having that limited time offer being the value in itself and forcing me into buying into it at whatever the market price is at the time in hopes that the price of it in the future would be much greater. And with that being the pitch and all this fear within the market, it's so easy to see why a lot of people will buy into this narrative and actually buy into Bitcoin and have the valuation of Bitcoin pushed up higher because people are buying at whatever the market price is at the time. And now I understand that blockchain technology is good. I definitely see the benefits behind it, but using blockchain technology to justify the actual value of Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency itself just doesn't seem right to me, especially at the prices they're going for now. And I think another thing when we're talking about the news and fear within the market is that when people look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, they have a lot of recency bias, right? I don't know if people just have forgot about it, it's just a blip in their memory, but they've forgotten about the massive boom that Bitcoin had and then the massive dip in that, and all the fraud and stuff that was going on the back end afterwards, and how that made the news. But now all of a sudden, because it's gone up by 300%, people are all on board again and all okay for Bitcoin. Because after the big dip and after the scare, it seems like such an awesome bargain now that it's going a little bit up, and hopefully it makes it back up to the top again. Another thing I wanted to touch on is price manipulation. Now Graham Stephan touched on this very, very well. He's definitely done his research, so if you want to check out that video, link to that down below and check it out. But essentially, a cryptocurrency named Tether claimed that it was being backed up by the US dollar. Now this created a lot of uproar, and it created a lot of hopes in that, we can invest in cryptocurrency safely and you can cash out at any time. So a lot of people actually did. So what does this mean, being backed up by the US dollar for the buyer and for the currency itself? So basically what I was trying to get at in the video is, for example, let's say Bill has a cryptocurrency, he's looking to sell it to Ted. Ted says, look, low-key kind of sketchy, I'm not sure what I'm getting myself into. Bill says, don't worry, it's backed up by the dollar, you're not going to lose any money because you're going to get, the equivalent of whatever cryptocurrency for $1 US. Ted then thinks it's safe, starts investing, buys the cryptocurrency from Bill. So now Bill holds all the hard cash and Ted holds X amount of coins in his app that he has on his phone. And now there's nothing stopping Bill from generating these digital coins to continue to accumulate in Ted's phone. And he's also free to do whatever he wants with the cash and run away. I think it's clear to see that most of these cryptocurrencies and their platforms can actually just create their own coins and in exchange for actual money, actual hard-earned money. And when they have that money, anything goes. They can send it overseas, they can do whatever, claim that it's lost. Now this happened over in the US. A platform called Bitfinex just transferred under $1 billion US overseas, somewhere in the Caribbean, who knows, probably where there's no taxes, and said that it was all lost in the transaction and the transfer. Convenient, isn't it? And then in later news, we find out that it's actually trying to raise capital. By the way, Tether and Bitfinex are managed by the same people. Later on, we find out that Bitfinex is actually trying to raise $1 billion through Tether. Now, I'm no genius, but if you put the two together, it seems kind of sketchy to me. So you can see here why I have a lot of skepticism towards cryptocurrency, right? It's a very, very slippery slope. The money that you can invest now might be gone tomorrow. And the liquidity of that coin or that cryptocurrency is very questionable when you have these companies and platforms that are transferring money in and out and manipulating the price by just moving hard cash around different entities. And I guess one last thing I want to touch on in terms of price manipulation is remember that just because some app tells you that you have X amount of coins or X amount of this, X amount of that, doesn't actually mean anything unless there's a cash equivalent for it and you can actually obtain that in cash. The equivalent of this for property or shares, to the fact, but property probably makes a bit more of sense, is that people were saying that they have this much equity within the property. Oh, my home has $400,000 in equity. The equity actually doesn't mean anything unless you can cash out on it. And in Australia, you see this a lot in Sydney and Melbourne, when these people who bought houses back then, their homes were worth $200,000 and now $1.3 million, and they've got $800,000, $600,000 in equity. However, they can't do anything with the equity unless they draw out a line of credit and use that for investment purposes. So just remember that it's just a number in an app. Your Bitcoin or whatever doesn't really mean anything unless you can cash out on it and use the cash to actually buy something. The same as somebody who's saying they've got a lot of equity. You can be equity rich and cash poor. And let's remember, the valuation of Bitcoin is valued against what? The US dollar, the Australian dollar. It's all valued against the current fiat currency system. Now, fundamentally, when you invest into shares or property, again, you're investing into something that creates either a product or a service for society, which in turn provides value. Whereas Bitcoin or any forms of cryptocurrency doesn't have any actual intrinsic value within itself, apart from what the next guy or girl is willing to pay for it. Let's go back and actually look at the definition of investing, right? We're injecting capital into something that provides some kind of value within society, which then we can hopefully profit from in the future. Now, that injection of capital is normally into an asset or a business that can produce an income or increase its valuation over time, in which we can cash out for actual money. And now within the investing world, absolutely there is some form of speculation within this, just like there is with Bitcoin. However, it lets me sleep at night when I know there's a physical asset that somebody is renting out or somebody that's actually using and paying for those services. It lets me sleep at night that I know that the businesses behind the shares that I buy are working really hard and are trying to turn a profit and are doing everything within the marketplace to stay alive. Whereas if I invest into cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, it's up in the air. I really don't know what's going on the back end apart from all the numbers that I see on my phone. My money could be here today and gone tomorrow. So with all of that being said, I think it's very clear, and you can probably see within my explanation of the whole thing, that I will not be investing into Bitcoin or any forms of cryptocurrency today, tomorrow, in the near future, forever.
Bruh.
I'm much more comfortable actually putting my money into a lot of small cap stocks, in particular a lot of tech or biotech companies where I'm waiting for them to break it big and then cash out. The good thing about small cap stocks is that you can actually go in with a greater volume. I'll explain this in a whole other video. You can go in with a greater volume, so then once it reaches to a certain evaluation, you can times 3, times 4, 10x your money and actually be quite profitable within that. So guys, if you enjoyed my video, hit the like button, please subscribe to the channel. Hopefully I will be more productive and consistent in putting out more videos. But until next time guys, see ya.